Hello students, it's me, Mr. Stottleman, and you are watching this video because you are interested in retaking the Adaptations Natural Selection test, which is great because you're not satisfied with your score and you want to do better, and those are good qualities to have, or you're striving for excellence. So what I'm going to do with this test is you're going to have to watch this video of me. I'm going to go through the test and check it out. We'll split screen action here. We're going to go through the test, and then you'll be able to get access to the retake when you're done with this. So let me pull up the test here. Let's look at the first question. First question says, adaptations occur when differences in traits allow some members in a population to survive better than others. Adaptations occur when differences in traits. So if we have differences in traits, of course we're going to have some survive better than others. We think about the hairless bunny. In that situation, the trait was different, so one bunny was able to survive better than another bunny. That is an adaptation, and so that would be a true statement. I'm not going to show you that. So then the next question, genetic mutations can be beneficial to an organism because, well, let's look at these options here. Genetic mutations, so these are things that would happen in a species that would change slightly over time, and we're looking at how they are good, beneficial, good. So let's see, is this a good genetic mutation example? They may lead to an increased chance of survival. Hey, increased chance of survival, that's a pretty good thing. I'd like to live. Let's look at this one. They may cause an organism to become extinct. That's not good. That's not beneficial. They may provide an increase in competition. I don't want competition. If I'm a species, I don't want other people messing around with my food sources. So I would not want competition. They may reduce the amount of organisms surviving in a population. Reduce the amount, get rid of, lessen. That's not good either. So if I'm looking for the one that's good, beneficial, it would be this first one right here. Mutation introduces a new skin color in a lizard population. Which factor might determine whether the new skin color will be a beneficial mutation? Okay, so again, we have a new skin color on a lizard. Is it a good thing? Which of these would be good? How many other lizards are present in the environment? Okay, well, I don't know if that's really helpful or harmful. It's just kind of neutral. For this one, how many different types of skin colors are present in the lizard population? Different types of skin colors. Would that be a beneficial mutation? This new skin color, would that be beneficial if there's a lot of different types? I don't know. It's tough to say. What if the mutation makes the lizards with the new skin color better able to survive their environment? So if the mutation makes the new skin color better for survival, that would be beneficial because it would help me survive, and that's good. What about this one? Whether the mutation was caused by nature or a human activity. Yeah, that one really wouldn't tell me much either. So if I'm looking for which one would be beneficial for this new skin color, here's my answer, the third one. Alright, how about this one? A wide variety of flower colors, red, pink, white, yellow, etc., are found in a certain species of rose. The colors are all found in relatively equal numbers. That's interesting, equal numbers. So no one color is more dominant than the other. So if you think about this problem, you have the rose colors here, so we could have like color, and we could have amount. So what they're saying here is white has this many, pink has this many, red has this many, purple has this many. They're all fairly similar. They're all fairly equal. Not any one of them is more than the other. Got it? Let's go back to the question. Colors are found in relatively equal numbers. What caused the large amount of variation? So why are there an equal number of colors? Genetic mutations. Well, that does cause differences in alleles to be expressed, so that could be the answer. Amount of sunlight received by each color. Well, if some receive more sunlight than others, I would think that color would be more relevant. Predators favor one color over another? Well, no, because then that would wipe out a color. If a predator really liked white, then all those white roses would be gone. Water quality? That would probably affect all of them equally, so I can't see that really affecting variety. Genetic mutations would be the winner here. Oops, didn't mean to click that. All right, physical feature of an organism aids in survival. Physical feature, this is outside features, that would be structural. I'm not going to spend too much time on that one. Behavioral traits developed after birth. So this is what they pick up on as they're growing. This would be learned behavior. Behavioral traits that they're born with. They just are alive and they know what to do. These would be instinctive behavioral adaptations. Remember my daughter with her palm closing and her feet closing. Those would be instincts. Body systems. So the ability to make venom or the ability to squirt blood. Those are functions. Functional adaptations. Functions of the body. All right, let's look at these beaks. We got these beaks here, and this is a key here to allow us to figure out which bird is which, and it's kind of like a flow chart, if you will. So we start with 1A, and we ask ourselves, the beak is relatively long and slender. If that's the case, then it's this type of bird, the Cerithidea. Is there anyone that's long and slender? Maybe that one. But we want to identify W. We want to identify this bird. That beak is not slender. That beak is long, but it's kind of wide. So we're going to go to B. The beak is relatively stout and heavy. Stout meaning wide. It looks pretty heavy. So we need to go to question 2. Okay, so we go to question 2. The bottom surface of the lower beak is flat and straight. That looks pretty flat and straight to me, which then tells me it's the Geospiza. It's Geospiza. Geospiza. Either way, we have identified that it's 1B, 2A. We have the bottom surface is flat. We know it's stout and heavy from the 1B. We can identify the beak being this guy right here. Let's look at this. Bee eaters are birds, typo. Fix that right now. Bee eaters are birds that eat insects, especially bees and wasps. They grab flying prey from the air with their beaks. Long ago, beneficial genetic changes took place so these birds could better catch their prey, resulting in beaks that became what? Okay, so they're catching flying insects. I would think if you're catching a flying insect, it'd be beneficial if you had a bigger beak. There you go, longer beak. Hello. Okay, how about this? Which statement correctly connects the bee eater's adaptation with its environment? So I'm guessing the adaptation of the beak with the environment. The environment largely determines which bee eater traits are beneficial. If the environment has a certain type of seed that the bird can only get to with a long beak, that's going to make that bird's beak grow longer. Or in this case, if the insects are really fast and it's difficult to catch them, a bigger, longer beak will be beneficial. So this is classic natural selection here, where the environment dictates traits. Let's look at this one. The bee eater's traits don't change based upon the environment. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about adaptations in natural selection. This is anti that. The environment changes? I don't think so. The environment's not going to change because of this bird. The bird is going to need to change because of the environment. But this one, the environment and the bee eater's traits have no relationship. We have not discussed that at all. Sorry. Moving on. A species of rodent lives in a moist forest climate and eats only plants. Over time, the climate becomes drier and more desert-like. Okay, so the climate's changing to be dry. Which adaptation would most likely improve the chances that the rodent could survive? So what does this guy need to do to survive in a desert climate? Sounds like our wildebeest activity. Would dark hair and small ears help? Dark hair, desert-like climate, I don't think that really has anything to do with dryness. Being able to eat plants that survive in a changed environment. Does it eat plants? It only eats plants. Well, if it's going to be able to survive in this new environment, it better be able to eat the plants that are there. This is a pretty good one here. Being able to eat only one type of berry, that would be bad. If you can only eat one type of berry, that berry gets wiped out, you're dead. What about having longer legs and better sense of hearing? I don't think that has to do anything with the desert climate, so I'm going to say no to that one. So it looks like we got this second option here. Okay, I think we're ready for natural selection now, part 2. Halfway through. Hang in there. You're doing great. The example of the peppered moths that we talked about in industrial English cities demonstrates that what? A change in the environment can result in the change of traits of the species living there. In other words, the change in the environment in this example was that the factories made the trees darker. Did that result in a change of traits? Yes, it did. What about this one? Change occurs so slowly that it's not possible to determine that it happened in less than a million years. Baloney. The peppered moth is an example of this because it only took like 100 years for that moth to change traits. So this would not be true. The environment in these cities has always favored dark-colored moths. Not true either. They used to favor light-colored moths because the trees were light-colored until the environment changed, which is why we have this first one as our answer. Which of the following is not a source of genetic variation? Ooh, this was in your notes. New combinations of genes through sexual reproduction, that's going to happen, especially when new people migrate in or new species migrate in. Movement of individuals between populations, that's going to cause genetic variation. I'm looking for the one that does not cause it. Gene mutations, that definitely causes variation. Sunlight radiation, no, we've never talked about that. This would not be a source of genetic variation. So, looks like that's your answer. Which of the following statements best defines survival of the fittest? Strongest organisms survive. Okay, maybe. Organisms with traits best suited for an environment survives. Ooh, if we're talking about natural selection, you got to think about the word environment in there. If I just have a strong organism, maybe this strong organism is now not so strong because the environment's changing. So just because you can beat someone in arm wrestling doesn't mean you're necessarily going to survive long term. I think this is the key here. You got to be able to adapt to your environment. Weak organisms survive? No. And organisms that exercise will survive more? No. If the zebra goes to the gym more than the impala or whatever, then the wolf will get the impala? No. Sorry. We're going to go with this one here, the organism that is best suited for the environment. Term evolution is what? A change in inherited traits of a population over many generations. A change in traits over time. That sounds pretty good. A process by which organisms become extinct? No, that'd be bad. Reproductive isolation of members. That would be like isolation, meaning they're by themselves. That wouldn't show change. And evolution is big with change. So if you are isolating yourself, you're not really going to change. So that wouldn't be much of a that wouldn't be evolution. Replacement of one community by another. No, it's not really replacement. It's more of changing, which is where we get this first one. Inherited traits of a population over many generations. Part 2, natural selection. Here we go. The genetic. This is key. I even capitalized it for you. The genetic option of an organism. Like with these rabbits that either have fur or not having fur. That may or may not help the organism survive in a given environment. What do we call those genetic options? Homozygous traits, well, that's all the same. So that isn't an option because homozygous traits are the exact same. Physical adaptations, that's not really a genetic piece that we've been talking about. Alleles, there is a genetic option. Alleles, remember, like eye color could be blue, brown, hazel, green. Hair color could be blonde, black, red. Height, short, tall. Heterozygous traits, those would be a difference, but that still would be dictated from mom or dad. So when we think about genetic options, we're going to need to go with alleles on that one. Look at this diagram. It's a 10-year period of rabbits. And here we have fur color. So this is the original color here. And it looks like this medium tinted rabbit was pretty popular. And the light colored one wasn't very popular, and the dark colored one wasn't very popular, but the just average color was pretty popular. Look at this. Ooh, look what happens to the white. Extinct. And the off-white is really low compared to that one after 10 years. This stays fairly similar, but look at this one. It jumps way up. So now the rabbit that's most popular is this darker furred one. So if we're looking at this change in 10 years, it seems like it's getting darker. Let's look at this. So what's the condition that explains it? Environmental condition changed to favor light fur. No, this guy's dead. So his light fur was not favored. It was actually a bad thing. The environmental conditions change to favor darker fur. Oh, this is darker, and it's getting better. The environmental conditions had no impact. Now, that's not true, because clearly these graphs are not the same. Changes occurred. The environmental conditions caused the total rabbit population to significantly decrease. Significantly decrease. So total population goes down. I don't know. These two, if you combine them together, it looks like it's about what this one would be. So maybe a little bit, but I don't think it's the word significantly decrease. I don't quite get that. What I see here is that the darker fur is a good thing. Look at this image. So we have a finch, beak depth, and we have these dry years, and this blue line represents the beak depth. So it looks like it's getting bigger when there's a dry year, and then it kind of comes back normal. And then we have a dry year, and it gets bigger, and then it kind of goes back to normal. Then a dry year, and it gets bigger, and then it kind of goes back to normal. And then it kind of goes down a little bit. Must be getting more water. But if you look at these dry years, the beak depth is getting wider. Okay, so what does that mean? What conclusion can we draw? Finch beaks grow during a dry year, so they may consume larger seeds. Okay. Finch beaks shrink during a dry year. That's not true. They don't shrink. They are clearly getting better, so I'm going to wipe out that second option. Larger beaked finches have an advantage during dry years. Okay. The graph doesn't really tell me much about the advantage, but it just kind of shows that they get bigger dry years. Smaller beaked finches have an advantage. I would think if the smaller beaks are an advantage, you'd see this line going the other way. So I could see where you say C, but I think A is the best one. Finches, beaks, that's a typo too. Finches, beaks, should be an apostrophe. Finches, beaks, shrink. There we go. So they need to grow. All right, change in the environment lead to the extinction of a species if the changes are warmer than the normal temperature. That's not necessarily going to be extinction. The changes lead to migration of the current species away. Well, that current species is migrating. They're not dying. They're just migrating. So that wouldn't be extinction. The species doesn't make beneficial adaptations. If they don't adapt, they're probably going to die, all of them. That would make them extinct. The changes are colder than the normal temperature. Again, that necessarily wouldn't mean extinction. So we're going to go with the third one there. All right, two parts here. A change in the environment in Kansas may result in, if the environment changes, what's going to happen? The extinction of a species which had successfully adapted to the new environment. Oh boy, that's wordy. Let's see this again. A change in the environment in Kansas may result in the extinction of a species which was successful. Why would a species that's successful go extinct? I'm wiping that one out. A new species appearing which is able to successfully adapt. Okay. A change. A new species which is successful in adapting. That could happen, I suppose. This is true. A species surviving because of its inability to adapt. Okay, if you can't survive if you don't adapt, so this would not be true. The extinction of a species because of its inability. Yeah, that would happen too. If its inability to successfully adapt, it's going to get wiped out. So it looks like it's the second one and the fourth one. Which of the following changes may cause a species population to increase in numbers? Increase in numbers. Which of these would cause an increase? Destruction of habitat, that's going to bring them down. Increase the amount of food. Ooh, if there's more food, there's probably more of us because we can eat better. That would be a good thing. That would cause an increase in numbers. What about the increase in predators? If there's more owls and I'm a mouse, that's not good because those owls are going to kill me and eat me. So I think my increase in numbers, if I was a mouse, that would go down if there's a lot of predators around. What about the increase in competition? Now, if there's more people wanting the same food I want, then I'm not going to increase in numbers. I'm probably going to stay the same or go down because there's not enough food for me. So if I have food and resources, I'm going to go up. Extinction of an organism may occur in an environment because of all the following except. So I got to find the one that doesn't fit. And I want to look for extinction. Whoops, darn, I didn't mean to do that. Extinction of an organism. So I want them to wipe out. I know you can see the answer already, but let's talk about it. The organism cannot adapt to changing environmental conditions. If you cannot adapt, you're going to die. So that would be extinct. Resources become limited looks like there's an extra space there. Resources become limited for the organism due to a change in the environment. If resources become limited, there's less of them, I'm going to go extinct. A change in the environmental conditions results in a beneficial mutation for the organism. If that happens, I probably won't go extinct because the environment is changing, but so am I, in a beneficial way. So that would not make me extinct. That would actually be a good thing. This might be our winner here. Humans negatively change the environment. Yeah, if humans are messing with it, there's a good chance we go extinct. Hello, bison of North America. Almost going extinct. Or pangolin, how about that? ELAB people. Okay, the following chart, allele frequencies. Ooh, look at this. We got a dominant allele and we got a recessive allele. Looks like the dominant allele is rising and the recessive allele is shrinking during these generations. Sounds to me like the Bean Bunny lab. So which statements could be true? The B allele does not provide a survival adaptation. If it's not providing a survival adaptation, it's probably going to shrink. It looks like the frequency is going up. In other words, more alleles are happening over the course of generations with the B allele, capital B. So this would not be true. The traits of the population are changing. I would say they are, because if you think about it, these are the traits. These alleles are traits, and they're not the same. They're changing. Both of them are. If they were staying the same, this number was the same, that would mean that those alleles are always the same, and that's not true. They're both changing, so I kind of like this one. The traits of the population are changing. Clearly they are, because these frequencies are changing. The recessive allele B does not provide a survival adaptation. Again, if it's not providing a survival adaptation, it would shrink. Let's see. Is it shrinking? Yes, it is. So this is not providing any usefulness to the species. So I'm going to go with that one too. Traits of the population are not changing. That's not true because these numbers are changing. There's not enough data. Yes, there is, because these numbers are changing. So we're going to go with the second and third. Okay, how about what if migration happens? So we have this population. You know, let's draw a picture on this one. If I have a population of rabbits, I have these rabbits here. I have all these cute little rabbits, and they all have 2 cottontails, whatever that means. They have 2 of them. There's their feet. Beautiful drawing. And this population is pretty good, and they're having fun. They're frolicking. And then, out of nowhere, another rabbit migrates in to this population, migrating in. And this rabbit has 1 cottontail. That's going to change the population because this new allele of 1 cottontail, which is not scientific at all, is being introduced. This is being introduced. When this guy mates with one of these, we now have a new allele. This is going to increase diversity and possibly change the makeup of that species. So if you look at the question, it says how might migration in or out affect, and yeah, you could even say out too. If these guys are leaving, then you'll have less alleles that will breed. So people leaving, rabbits leaving, or rabbits coming, it has a big change in the traits of the population. So let's see here. How might the migration of individuals in or out of the habitat affect the frequency of each allele? Migration will only change the frequency of the bee, and not necessarily, because it's what allele does it bring in. Migration will only change the frequency of the recessive, and again, not necessarily. Migration will change the frequency of both. Probably, because even if it's only one of these alleles that come in, they both are going to be affected by it because of the one allele from mom, one allele from dad. Migration will not change? No. Unless, of course, the migrating species is exactly the same as the species that's currently there, but that's not what this question is saying. So we're going to go with this one. Okay, look at this picture. These little hooks on the end of this ant. Which environmental factors might cause a decrease in the size of the hooks? These hooks getting smaller. Birds prefer to eat ants with smaller hooks. Let's think about this. If birds like smaller hooks, those ants with smaller hooks are going to die and bigger hooks would prevail. The question says we want to know why there would be a decrease. This first one is going to cause an increase because the smaller hooked ants will die. Ants with smaller hooks need less food. Ooh, if you need less food and you have smaller hooks, there's going to be more of you because it's easier to survive. This would increase smaller hooks because they don't need as much food. Female ants preferred mates with smaller hooks. Hey, this would also help because if you have smaller hooks, you're more likely to pass on your traits because that's what female ants prefer. So this would cause an increase. Small snakes can only swallow ants with short hooks. Again, this is kind of like the first one. If that's what your predator likes, then you're going to go away, and the other trait will rise, which is the larger hooks. So this would not be true. So we're looking at the first, second, and third. Why is genetic diversity important? I think this came from your notes kind of too. Genetic diversity, that's like when there's lots of different traits for a species. Genetic diversity will allow for species to survive changes to the environment. Bingo. If the environment changes and we have a diverse population, then we will be able to survive because certain parts of that population will be okay for the environment. We all might not survive, but enough of us to continue our species will. So I like this one. But we need to select two. Genetic diversity is a driving force of natural selection because only the strongest and best traits will survive in the something. Can't see that. I gotta click on it. Well, let's think about this. Genetic diversity is a driving force of natural selection because only the strongest and best traits will survive. I like this. It is a natural selection idea. This one here. I got kids coming in.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry.
You're fine.
It stinks. My shoes are off.
Gross.
Hi.
I'm recording a video right now. You all are on video.
Yay!
What?
Yeah.
We're on video.
We're on video?
Yeah.
Where?
You gotta go, because I gotta get this done.
Okay, see ya.
Goodbye. Alright. Sorry about that. Let's keep going. Why is genetic diversity important? Again, I like this one. Driving force of natural selection because only the strongest and best traits survive. Genetic diversity allows for species to look similar to each other. Being the same is a good thing? No, I don't think so. Genetic diversity allows for predators to hunt only under certain environmental conditions. That's not going to be good either. Only under certain environmental conditions. That's going to wipe out those predators because they won't be able to survive. Look at this picture. We have changes over time. So we have picture 1, picture 2, picture 3. And look at the population of mice. We have an equal number of brown to white. Then we have more brown than white. And then we have more brown than white. In fact, the browns don't change at all. There's 4, 4, 4. The whites go from 4, 3 to 1. What does that say about the predator? What's the explanation with this change over time? White mice are able to reproduce more successfully. If that was true, we'd have more white mice at the end. The eagle ate more dark mice than white. Well, that would mean that there's less dark over here. The eagle ate more dark mice than white because they can see the dark easily? No. The eagle ate more white mice than dark because they can see the white mice more easily. There you go. He's clearly eating more white than dark. He can see the white better. Those white furred allele rats or rodents, whatever they are, mice, they're gonna die unless they adapt. Which of these scenarios is an example of natural selection? Farmers crossbreed 2 types of cows. This does not involve the environment. This involves us doing it ourselves. Really, with natural selection, you want to think about how the environment dictates traits. Dogs of the same breed are bred with one another to produce more puppies with similarities. No, and we don't. I mean, similarities. We don't want similarities. Wolves with thick coats survive a cold winter. Hey, environment, cold winter. More than wolves with thin coats. Thick-coated wolves have more offspring. In other words, offspring, babies. That would be a good example of natural selection because it's about the environment and then it's about traits being passed based upon the environment. People killing rattlesnakes that rattle when approached by humans, but they don't remain silent. Yeah, I could see that happening. If rattlesnakes remain silent when they're around humans, that could be a good adaptation. But really, the third one is the one that connects the environment to it. 4 finches. These are 4 finches that are found on the Galapagos Islands. They're not in order. I think some of you maybe thought these were in order. And we see that finches that eat mostly seeds have shorter beaks. Which statement best describes how natural selection results in the 4 types of finches? So why do we get these 4 types? The residents of the Galapagos Islands selectively bred together finches? No, that's not true. The narrow-beaked finches first came and evolved into broad-beaked finches through a series of natural mutations. That would tell you that this one comes first and then they ultimately end up here. That's not what the diagram says. It says that all 4 of these live at the same time. The question is why? It's not like this one was the starter and it ended with this. The broad-beaked finches wore down their beaks digging for insects and passed these narrow beaks on to their offspring. They wore down their beaks. Again, it'd almost be like they start with this one and go here. But again, these all live at the same time. That's the key to this. How do they all live at the same time? Look at this last one. Over time, the finches that were born with beaks better suited for the available food supply in their habitats survived and reproduced. Each of these survive in a different habitat with a different food source. That's why they all are different but living at the same time, because they all have unique food supplies, similar to what we did with our lab, where different birds will survive at the same time because there's different food sources. So your answer would be this last one. Last question. Scientists observed a population of insects living in a warm, dry climate over time. Which piece of evidence would not indicate change in inherited traits of the population has occurred? Okay, so warm, dry climate. Which piece of evidence would not indicate change? So no change would take place. The phenotypes of the population changed. I'm looking for the one that won't indicate change, so this one is telling me it's changed, not the answer. Distribution of traits in a population has changed. Okay, again, we're trying to figure out which one is not changing. This clearly is saying it's changing. The population has become better adapted to survive in its environment. Okay, interesting. Population is better adapted. To me, that says change in its environment. Better adapted. They're changing, and I want to figure out which one is not changing. The allele frequency of a particular form of a gene has remained the same. Remaining the same is not changing. And that allele frequency, if it's always the same percentage, that would tell me that there's no change. There's your last one right there. All right, you've reached the end of the video. In order to be given access to the test, you have to come see me with the password. Don't tell anyone the password because they have to watch the video. But the password is Mr. Bigglesworth. Tell me that, I'll reset your test. Thank you.